ready when you are, Dursorama. Oh, let's turn the volume off on my phone. Rookie.
Game on, Mr. Dashney.
Hey, game on. Grab the nets, sticks in the middle. Welcome to another episode of Straight Off the Pipe podcast on the Heavy Hockey Network. Tonight's guest, it's a good one. Personally, extremely happy to have him on because, quite honestly, I feel like there isn't enough time or crayons to be able to explain hockey to Mike Dursa. He's a blogger on Because Oilers. He's an analytics guru, if you will. He's a regular guest on both 630 Ched, 1260 TSN, Darcy McLeod. You can find him on Twitter at Woodguy55. Welcome to the show, Darcy.
Thanks for inviting me on, guys.
Appreciate you taking the time to stop by and chat some Oilers and how the season's gone so far, as well as maybe where you see it going, and as well as being able to explain, maybe some analytics on why we're headed in the direction that we have been. My co-host up in the grandest of prairies looks like he's parked on his couch tonight instead of cell block 99. So Jason Stradwick must have shamed him out of the porta potty there. But good to see you, Durs, and take her away, buddy.
Yeah, I'm excited to have Woodguy, or as he's known in real life, Darcy McLeod, on the show tonight.
Real life.
He's somebody that I've followed for a while, and I appreciate the way he goes about analytics. Doesn't seem to come across as too angry, like some analytics guys I think do. And I just think that he presents numbers, and they are what they are, and you can take them for wherever you want to take them, and that's kind of how it is. I guess first out of the chute here, I'd like to ask Darcy what I kind of ask everybody, and that's kind of when did you become an Oilers fan?
Well, my earliest memory of watching the Oilers was in the 79-80 season, their first season in the NHL. And Brett Callaghan and Riso Siltanen were my favorite players. Like, I still love Riso Siltanen to this day. We had a table hockey game, and of course we broke a guy who was my defenseman, who was always on the side I played, and I with some white hockey tape taped a green pencil on the little spindle to shoot the puck, and it shot the puck like 90. And so from then on till the end of time, that was Riso Siltanen on the hockey table. He was just my favorite. Gretzky and Messier were like 18 years old. Lowe and Siltanen were 20 years old. It was, and you have no idea because you're a kid, right? So they're all adults, and it was really cool. I grew up at the right time.
I guess we'll follow that up with your favorite Oiler moment.
Oh, well, winning the first cup, it was ridiculous. I got on my bike and biked down to Jasper, having my 10 speed as fast as I could. And it was, they were winning cups, and the Eskimos were as big of a deal almost as the Oilers at the time.
City of champions.
Eskimos. Oh, it was crazy. It was like, I was in my early teens, and all they did was win, and I was really into sports. I played a lot of sports and followed all the sports, and how could you not become fans forever? It was great.
So you went down that road with the Eskies, now known as the Elks. I will ask you something that I didn't prep you for.
That's fine.
Favorite Eskimo / elk of all time.
Well, I got a few. Jim Germany was like, he could just, everyone would pile up in line, and he would just step over everyone and not lose a beat. Brian Kelly was 5'8", and everyone in the field was faster than him, but he would just catch these long bombs. And of course, Moon would just lay him right into the breadbasket, but he never missed. Brian Fryer, Waddell Smith. The first jersey I ever had was actually an Eskimo jersey. It was a Waddell Smith jersey. They were, Dave Sinnell and Dan Kepley, Dale Potter. It was lots of favorite players. I was a bigger Eskimo fan than I was an Oilers fan at that time.
That seems like there was a tradition already there, so I can see how that would come to be. I guess when the Oilers were first starting out, I was like 3 years old, so not too many memories right off the hop there. But it didn't take it didn't take too long before that started to happen for me. So I wanted to know too. Obviously, you've been doing analytics for a while, but what got you kind of started, tracking games and all that?
Well, I got a Bachelor of Commerce from U of A from the early '90s, and statistics and probability were core courses. So I'm familiar with the concepts, right? I kind of know what the basis for a lot of that is, and it was about 2003, and the poker boom was going on, and I was really heavily involved in online poker, and I was playing quite a bit and doing well. Went to a few World Series of poker, and I was on this website called 2+2 and learning about probabilities, and it was really cool because it dovetails to what I kind of knew about that type of thing and how to incorporate that in poker strategy. And then because I was online and an Oilers fan, I discovered websites like Covered in Oil and Battle of Alberta and Low Tide .blogspot, and just started, paying, first I was very anti-analytics at the beginning, and got won over because of the math and because, you just can't really argue with it in a lot of cases. But I discovered all that, and there's a lot of really smart people right at the beginning writing, just creating all this stuff. Like really, it was the creation of Corsi, and the whole thing that everyone forgets is that the reason Corsi was a big deal was because it was the first metric that you could measure with what the NHL published on the game sheet, the shot attempts that actually predicted future goals better than current goals. So you could predict the future better, which is everything when you're trying to figure out what's going on. And that's what started the fantasy stats movement. And it was really cool.
So that leads me to something else. Like, everybody watches Moneyball, and they see, the Oakland A's use of analytics, in a baseball term. So baseball's everybody knows it's kind of a fairly stagnant game without a lot of different variables that go on. How sophisticated are the algorithms starting to get now in terms of dealing with hockey? Because a lot of people write off analytics when it comes to hockey because they, that a whole argument that it's a stagnant, baseball stagnant. So how do you relate that to hockey?
Yeah, I have no idea what the latest and greatest are because I'm not I'm not involved in it day to day, and I certainly don't have the ability to do it at that level. I would just, to the people who think analytics and hockey, aren't a great match, I would just point out Tampa Bay, Washington, like a lot of the all the best teams, Carolina, most of the best teams have really good analytics groups, and they're not the burning bush, but it adds, right? And no analytics person, and I know a few work for NHL teams, no analytics person who actually is serious about it would ever say, well, it's this or the highway.
Right.
They're trying to figure out why, right? They're trying to figure out why, and you got to marry that with, personalities, because if you've ever managed people, you're managing people, you're managing personalities. And you can only get that usually from your intelligence from the agents. Or not just the agents, but your scouts, and how there's many ways that players are good at hockey. What do they do well, and how do you marry that with other players who do well? And hockey is really complicated, and that's why a lot of the broad-based metrics that we see, they point us in the right direction, but they certainly don't give us a final answer.
I appreciate
Which
that.
is why I love your perspective. Yeah, exactly. I think, there is there are definitely some analytics people that do tell you that it's their way or the highway. Maybe Mr. Dello was one of them sometimes.
No. he was really abrasive on Twitter, but I would just disagree with you. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And that's all the only, we just said at the beginning of the podcast, real life. There's real life. I just thought life existed in Twitter. So that's fair. Well, you're a man of my heart with a Bachelor of Finance. I've got a minor in statistics as well, and spent a fair share of $1 million or so hands on Poker Stars. So I think we probably have a little bit of a similar approach to the way we look at hockey. So I love that as well. The eye test is one thing, and the analytics are another. And I think a person is crazy not to obviously look at the entire, picture. If you look at it in terms of, using that metaphor of painting a picture, why would you paint a picture with 4 colors on your palette if you can use 10? And ultimately, you're going to get a more dynamic look of what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, exactly. And it is complicated. And like good hockey players do really good things differently. The reason Connor McDavid is really good is not the reason Patrice Bergeron's a Sherlock first ballot Hall of Famer. They're different hockey players, both really good at hockey, but there's so many different things you have to take into account. That's why it's interesting, and I love the game.
So this is the way I look at it. Tell me if you agree or disagree, but I feel like analytics are important in both sports. To Michael's point or Durst's point there, baseball's a static sport. There's starts and stops, and there's 60 foot 6 inches, and there's 90 feet in between the bases. Whereas obviously in hockey, there's a lot of moving parts. There's catalysts that are involved and different speeds. And my thoughts have always been that they're important to both of those sports, but just in incredibly different ways. I think you use analytics in baseball much differently than you use analytics in hockey. Is that just fair to put that blanket statement on it?
I don't have enough experience in analytics in baseball to give an answer that has any authority behind it, but intrinsically, having played both sports and know both sports, and I agree with what you're saying, is that it would be easier to suss out exactly where your advantages are in baseball as opposed to hockey. Although, it boils down to what the management is looking for in players, right? It all boils down to player procurement, and is this player adding value to the team, whether it's hockey or baseball, and what's the design, what's the goal with the hockey team or the baseball team. And if you're trying to add, apparently in baseball, everyone's trying to smash the ball to the park all the time, so they acquire those players who can play a little bit of defense at the same time. Pendulums swing the other way eventually. With hockey, I think there's so much more. It's so much more. I hate the word nebulous, but more net. It's not quite as defined. So there's a lot worse player procurement in hockey than there is in baseball, because I think more hockey people who procure players they're just trying to get good players, but they don't know exactly what they're looking for. Whereas in baseball, you can specifically say, we need this, and you can boil it down a little bit better.
Darcy, I'd like to kind of give people an idea, or have you sort of take them through what a typical game day is like when you're tracking whatever you track. Like, just let people kind of see through your lens what a game is like.
Well, I don't play, so it's not like I have an afternoon nap, right?
Yeah.
And and for what I'm, I had season tickets during the Decade of Darkness, but I gave them up when it became tougher and tougher to sell them. Yeah. And honestly, I usually PVR the game, and I start watching about 30 minutes after it starts, so I can speed through commercials and first intermission and all the extra stuff, and I usually catch up at the end of the second. But I've been watching the games without sound for about 3 years now, and I recommend it to anyone who wants to watch the players other than the puck carrier, and how plays develop, and who's back checking, and when player X goes to that spot, who's swinging behind and covering, and trying to figure out what the team's trying to do and who's playing it properly. And the reason I have the sound off is because I find that play-by-play almost forces you to puck watch, right? It forces your brain automatically tries to reconcile what it's hearing, what it's seeing. So you're trying to it forces you to look at the puck. But with the sound off, it's way easier to pay attention to what's happening away from the puck, at least as much as they show on TV. You know, live is much different because you can see everything.
Yeah, I guess the play-by-play guy's job is to, you know, help you follow the game. So that's an interesting perspective. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, exactly. And I try to follow the game a little bit in a different way because, you know, in the replay, you're going to see where the puck was. But when you're watching, you know, you watch the replay, often you can see the blown coverage ain't going to make the replay because it happened, you know, 60 feet up the ice.
Yeah.
So if you were like the kids playing the Chell, you'd prefer the press box view versus the on ice view, hey?
Yeah, it depends on what I'm trying to do. But if I'm trying to enjoy the game on ice view, it'd be a riot. But if I'm trying to actually see what the hell's going on. But yeah, all the stuff I put out there on Twitter, that was, you know, I pull that off the NHL game sheets the next day. Just, you know, make sure I'm not screwing it up because I will.
So do you watch the games multiple times, or are you able to track everything you need to track by watching a game once, or, you know, after the fact, are you going back to the PVR and rewinding?
Yeah, I don't really track anything in real time. I just put up goals.
Everything.
Like the goals the next day, and that's, you know, you can get that off the NHL. You know, like I said, you get it off the game sheets, who was on the ice, who wasn't on the ice. Doesn't tell the whole story, but you get a big enough sample and it'll tell you something. And I'm, you know, I don't track anything other than that. You know, I watch the games and enjoy them like everyone else does. I just try to, you know, I watch them in a specific way, and that's, you know, it's just the way I like hockey.
Makes sense.
So now for the homework part of your assignment. How does Evan Bouchard's season compare with Ethan Bear's rookie campaign? Because kind of, in my eyes, I think the reason why they dealt Bear is because they wanted to make a spot for Bouchard, knowing that they wanted Barry as their power play quarterback.
There's a lot going on in that question. I'll just say,
yes, there is.
The Oilers power play does not rely on whoever the hell's on defense because Nurses had better goals per 60. It's close. You know, if you close your eyes, if I put the Oilers' first unit power plays results with Nurse under A and Barry under B, you couldn't pick them out of the lineup, right? So the Oilers, the power play doesn't rely on the defenseman, and if they thought it did, that's too bad. But I really liked your question, though, because I thought it was really an interesting one, because Evan Bouchard and Ethan Bear were both 22 years old in their first campaign, and when you're looking at players and trying to figure out what they're going to be later, age is really important. You know, their experience is important as well, and how many NHL games they've played before then, but age, all that kind of works together, but age is, like, super important. And Bear actually had a bit of a tougher job in his first year. He was playing first pair with Nurse for most of the time. Remember when he came in those Tippett's first year and he threw Bear up there because he had Larson and Klefbom on the second pair. It was a really good top four, actually. It was a pretty decent top four. Yeah. And Bouchard's been up and down between first and third pair. Like now he's pretty much staple to Nurse, and Nurse plays a lot with McDavid. So Bouchard's time on ice versus the elite in terms of what I look at to determine what they're playing. Bear played first pair all year. Bouchard's playing a mix because we're only 28 games in, right? So, but he's playing a mix, but he'll just be stuck on the first pair eventually. Yeah. Bouchard's results versus elites are better, and again, this is how I'm kind of trying to figure out how they did as rookies, because the toughest thing to do in the NHL is play against the best players.
Against the best top line.
So how are they doing? But of course, you know, when you play with Nurse, you play a lot with McDavid, and Nurse. Here's a big thing: Nurse is much better, in my opinion, than he was a couple of years ago. I think he's about the same last year to this year. You know, his shooting percentage is off, but there's no way he's going to sustain that.
Yeah.
But Nurse is better now than he was when he played with Bear, and better able to handle top pair. And the end result is better, but they're fairly close. Bouchard's better, though. Like, straight across, like, I'm looking at a whole bunch of numbers, which would be boring if I just listed them off, so they won't mean anything. But Bouchard's better across the piece, but he's playing. But Nurse is better as well. But Bear is quality defenseman, and I'm sad that he's not on the team because he's the better 5-on-5 defenseman than Barry, in my opinion. And they didn't need to bring Barry back. You know, I like who the hell did they trade him for?
Fogel. Yeah.
Fogel. Yeah, I like Fogel. Fogel's fine. Doesn't put the puck in the net enough. Never has. Is on a shooting percentage, and the shooting percentage for his history is a little low to trade for a top four defenseman. And I think that's what Bear is. And that's my opinion.
Yeah, I think the Oilers. I think the Oilers miss Ethan Boyer a lot more than most would say, and I also think that you nailed it there with not needing to bring Barry back if we still had Bear. And I love what you say about the matching development curves, you know, age-wise, with Bouchard and Bear comparatively. And I'd like to kind of maybe get what your thoughts are. What I always used to think last year, and even the year before as well, was that Bear really settled Nurse's game down. It's a lot more chaotic when Nurse is paired with Barry. And I guess, what do you see in terms of Bouchard settling Nurse's game down versus Bear settling Nurse's game down?
That's a really good question, and I hadn't thought about it before, so I'm pulling all this right out of my ass. But both Bouchard and Bear can really pass, right? The best thing, I love this about Bear, is that he would have the puck, and he'd have a forechecker on him, and he'd make one more move, and just give himself another half second, and then he'd have a better lane to make the outlet pass, and the Oilers could leave the defensive zone with the puck, with some speed, and he did that so well. And Bouchard does that well, too. I think Bouchard processes that a little slower. Like, Bear was fast, and he could, when he evaded the forecheck, he did it with, like, a quick sidestep, bang, pass, whereas Bouchard will plan his evasion, and it goes a little slower. And I think, and this just might be a factor of how many NHL games they played, because Bear got better. He certainly wasn't great his first year, but right. Defending the front of the net and just impeding the guys, the forwards you're trying to defend, impeding their road to the front of the net, so they don't have those great, awesome looks. Just getting in their way, not necessarily tying up the stick and all that stuff, but just being a bother on the road to the front of the net for the opposing teams. I think Bear was better than that than Bouchard, but it can be learned, it can be taught. I mean, he's a big guy, you know. He can deal with it.
So, kind of the next thing, you already kind of answered the Nurse question, so I'm just going to skip by that. But you know,
no, do that again, because I got some good notes.
Do you? Okay. So on Nurse's game, to me, just watching it seems like he's focusing more on being, you know, defensively responsible instead of the offensive juggernaut that he kind of was last year. Is there any substance to that? Like, do you think his game's improving defensively over last year, or what do you got?
I think last year and this year are really close. I think he's much better than he was 3 and 4 years ago, and because we've watched the player for so long, you don't know where your mind has anchored your opinion of the player. And this year he's being as offensive. Like last game, I think he had 4 shots within the face-off circle in the offensive zone on rushes. Like, he had a lot of shots. He didn't do anything with them, but he had a lot of shots. Last year those were going in. This year they're not. That happened. Last year they went in way more often than they will long term. This year they're going in less. That happened. But it's when you look at the raw results, Nurse's results are a bit better this year. Goals against, shots against, shot attempts against, scoring chances against. But when you dig into it, it's almost entirely due to less time with Barry. Barry's results with Nurse are slightly better this year than last year. And Bouchard's results with Nurse are really close to Barry's last year. But last year, Nurse played 63% of his time with Barry. This year, it's just 30%. So when you control for partners, Nurse is kind of the same player he was last year, maybe a bit better. He's just doing a lot less with Barry, who's really bad defensively. And that's, straight up, that's it.
Yeah, whoever's paired with Barry is going to have chaos to take care of, let's be honest.
Yeah, he needs a big left-handed blanket.
So, in the summer there was, and an exodus of Adam Larson and a trade that involved Caleb Jones going to Chicago and Duncan Keith coming back, and all you heard was it was the apocalypse. But what is it really?
I'm on record saying that a lot of the analytics that you see on Twitter, the guys who do analytics for a living, they call it Twitterlytics, because it's not. It's the light stuff, It really is. And you know what? And I do that. Okay.
It's like getting your medical advice on Facebook.
Similar, and really, and I'm just showing the same stuff, And I'm not saying I'm any better, and because I don't really, this was just fun, and I think I show stuff that means things, but I don't try to come to one number to describe everybody and whatnot. But when you look at Keith, like actually when they traded for Keith, I put up a post at my blog because the Oilers at Blogspot or something like that, and. Yep. I found that, because I really didn't have a clue, because I heard two things. Because I wasn't following Keith. And the Twitterlytics was telling me he's the worst defenseman in the world. And the MSN was telling me that he's a first-pairing defenseman, former, has won all these awards. And he has. He was. I remember Keith kicking the shit out of the Oilers when they were awful. And he was a very good player. But I didn't know what the hell he was doing the last couple of years, so I dug into it, and I found it interesting enough. I'm like, maybe other people will find this interesting. And I put it out there. Thank you. And I found that he was kind of a slightly below average second-pairing defenseman who was tasked with carrying rookies into a top four on a really bad team. And he was probably slightly below average, but I don't know. It's really tough to tell. But when you looked at him side by side with the other defensemen on Chicago, he was kind of, he wasn't terrible when you comparing them to them. But were they any good? I don't know. Like, it was a bad team, but they had no forwards last year. So I thought, at the end of it, I'm like, okay, he's not what he was, and he was one of the best, but he's not that. But they said they hired him for his leadership, his history, calming everyone down. Sure, okay. I don't know. I'm not in the hockey industry. I don't know if you hire people for that. And really, because Keith's not his claim to fame, but when you look at Keith's numbers, all of his value comes from the offensive side of the puck, even 5-on-5. And because he can move the puck, he's not a great defender. And I thought, putting him with Larson was actually probably a pretty good idea, because Larson was the best defender that the Oilers have had since, I don't know, Jason Smith.
Yeah.
In terms of defending the top six on the other team. I thought, that's actually probably a pretty decent idea. Now paying what they did and taking on full cap hit, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the player.
None of us are a fan of that.
No. Even Jim Matheson thought, there's no way they're taking on full cap hit. And when Jim Matheson thinks that, it should be clear to everybody. And I grew up reading Jim Matheson. I have a lot of respect for him. So it's a bit of a shot, but anyhow. So yeah, Keith is kind of is what he is. CC, he had, he was actually not a bad partner for Riley. If you look at his numbers in Toronto 2 years ago, and then, or it might have been 3 years ago. I haven't looked at him for a bit. And then in Pittsburgh, he started his third pair. And then as the season went on, if you look at it, you got to dig in a bit. But as the season went on, CC kind of elevated up the roster, and in the playoffs he played for sure second pair, and did decently. So I thought, okay, I honestly believe that Larson leaving was a little unexpected, and they didn't plan on it. I think CC perfectly fine reaction to that for what was available, because there wasn't much available, and I've been fairly happy with CC. But as a pair, they're a below average second pair defenseman in the league. They also have not an easy job, because Nurse gets so much time with McDavid that the second pair job on the Oilers is playing the tougher opponents without McDavid. And that's not an easy job. It really isn't, because this team's not, it's not deep, it's not experienced. And they're doing okay, not great. And that's where I stand on that.
Okay, not great. I'd say that sums it up pretty good. I've got a lot to say on Keith. I'll maybe save a lot of it because most of it's bad. I don't know. I was not
Since
a
when
fan
do you
of trade.
Since when do you ever save anything?
I suppose.
Let her go.
I wasn't a fan of this acquisition. I the biggest part that hurt me was that it was just such a careless spend of glorious cap space that we had, finally kind of ran into for the first time in a long time. And for Duncan Keith to be the key acquisition and to have to lose Caleb and to have to take on full salary, you kind of alluded to it earlier, Darcy, but intangibles don't show up in analytics, right? And so what are we bringing the guy for? He calms things down. Sure. Is that $5.5 million? God, no. Keith's what I jumped off the page for me in your blog that you wrote on him was that how often he was getting referred to last year in Chicago as a top pairing defenseman, and he clearly wasn't. If you're going to go strictly by time on ice, then sure, he was, because he was getting a lot of power play time and a lot of padded minutes. But your analysis and your breakdown there was awesome, because it shows that Keith wasn't playing against elite opposition. He wasn't playing against, teams' top lines very often. And he still put up the worst defensive WAR percentage in the entire National Hockey League here, 99th percentile kind of type thing. So he wasn't great on the power play, but that's where he get all of his offensive, statistical push from. CC, there's a similar story there. You talked about him being a good pair in with Riley in Toronto, but he was still taking on 23 or 24 minutes a game in Toronto, and even in Ottawa before that. When CC got moved to Pittsburgh, his time on ice got significantly decreased down to maybe the 17 to 19 and 18 minute mark.
Yeah, 100%. He started out as third pair on Pittsburgh. Yeah.
And wasn't, again, playing against other teams' top lines, wasn't playing against elite opposition. So, you had both Keith and CC the previous season, in our shortened COVID season, playing considerably sheltered minutes, and still, CC came out statistically okay. Keith still didn't. And I think what we're seeing this year is what you said. Yeah, they're okay. They're not great. I think, we saw them play good or decent against the opposition, where, there was teams where we had opposition that didn't make the playoffs last year. When you put them up against Winnipeg and you put them up against those big teams we had on our homestand, I thought they were exposed incredibly. And that's what scares me moving forward about those two is I just can't see that as a second pairing that really is going to be able to be relied on consistently for the rest of the season as well as deep into the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, and I think what you're speaking to speaks to something that's a big frustration with a lot of the Fancy Stats Oilers fans, is that they don't aim high enough. It's like, okay, if you're gonna go out and spend for a second pairing left-handed defenseman, and spend what they spent and spend the cap space that they spent, because you're right, the cap space that they're spending on Keith, that's an abomination. That's you can't do that and be competitive. Cap space is the single most valuable thing. It's far more valuable than actual dollars in the NHL, and
for sure.
And you can't do that. So they don't aim high enough. Like I said, I think the CC thing was more of a quick reaction, and he was the best of what they had to get, and or what they had the ability to get, and so that's who they got. And honestly, I'm not disappointed. But to make your the biggest thing you spent all your money or a good chunk of your available cap space on was Duncan Keith.
So auspicious.
Wow, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I remember whining on Twitter that, oh my God, Colorado just picked up Devin Taves for 2 seconds. That guy's going to play first pair for the next 12 years. And they paid 2 seconds for him.
Yeah.
Right? And then Colorado, because they had Devin Taves, had too many left-handed defensemen, and Ryan Gravel was they're going to have to punt him. You looked at their roster. They're going to have to punt him before and turn him into something before the expansion draft. Sure enough, they trade him to the Devils, and I'm not sure they got maybe a second. I don't know. I'm sorry, I haven't looked it up. I'm pissed off, so now
Something
I'm
like that.
ranting a bit.
I got you fired up. That's what I do to Dursa too.
Yeah, and he's playing first pair with a very good defenseman. I'm pretty sure he's playing with who the hell's the kid who played Boston and Carolina and Calgary. Really good right-handed defenseman. Tall guy, likes museums.
Dougie Hamilton?
No.
Dougie Hamilton. He's playing with Hamilton. And Hamilton's a really good NHL player. But Gravel can play up there, right? Like he played second pair and he was good at it in Colorado. I remember looking at him thinking, he's pretty, his results. He's owning his results. It's not relying on somebody else. And he's playing actual NHL top four. And he's a big man, and he hits hard, and he's a little mean, and the Oilers could use a little bit of mean in a lot of their lineup. I believe in mean in hockey. I really do. I'm old school that way.
I like that about Niemelainen. Retaliate with sticks in the face and the big hits. Not just the big hits, but other cross-checking in the face. I think Niemelainen's got a little bit of that for us.
Yeah, I really like that about Larson. He's just filthy. Same with Jason Smith. Ulanoff, Lee Fogelin, I really like Oilers defensemen who kind of make guys pay. It's fun to watch, because you're sharing sports. You like to see it.
Yeah, Kevin Lowe, Jason Smith.
Yep.
So you touched on Niemelainen for a second there, but what have you seen statistically from him? Unfortunately, now he's banged up a little bit and he's not playing, but. What have you seen so far? It's
really too early to tell anything. He's kind of a below-average third-pairing defenseman by his results so far, but it's 7 NHL games in, so to expect anything else is wrong. We'll see. He seems to be able to keep up to the plate. Like when I'm looking at defensemen coming into the game, is the game too fast for them? It's always too fast for them to start. Can they catch up? Doesn't seem to be too fast for him, but his results are kind of shitty. But he's 7 games in; they're going to be.
He's kind of like, when you play NHL on EA there and you try to have 10 hits a game. That seems to be his MO every night.
I don't mind that.
Yeah, no, it's good.
As long as it doesn't hurt the team, don't hurt the ball club. Yeah, be a positive player. You can hit as much as you want.
For sure. Yeah. And he's not taking penalties from it, so it's good.
Exactly.
Do you see reasons to be optimistic about this group? I guess when I said that to you and gave you kind of a heads up on that, we were in the midst of a 6-game losing streak, not knowing if it was going to go to 7. But
yeah, I know what you're saying, and it sounds like recycled trope, but. They weren't as good as they were in the first 10 games. They're not as bad as they are in the last 10 games. That's just all there is to it. Hockey ebbs and flows. Yeah. PDO ebbs and flows. And it really depends on what you mean by being optimistic. Is making playoffs optimistic? I don't think so. Winning a round, well, they better. Winning 2 rounds, I think that's optimistic. If the bottom shit can get their bottom shit.
Well, Freudian slip there.
Yeah. Oops.
What's our problem right now? The bottom shit.
So you led me to another question that me and Dash have been going around with. If this group can't win a playoff round, in the first round, Tippett gone. I mean, he's in a contract year anyway, so.
Tippett's got to win a round.
I think so too.
And I'm not even sure he wants to coach hockey anymore.
Why do you say that?
Right? Well, I kind of heard he had an option to re-sign. He's like, I'm not sure. And, and had a lot going on in his life. We found out in the summer his dad just passed away. It's just, and apparently he's done really well outside of hockey. And he's made money in hockey and done well with that, so he doesn't need to do this. And, sometimes, even if you're good at something, if you don't need to do it and it's a pain in the ass, you just, smart people stop doing it, and I'm not even sure he wants to do it anymore.
That would be interesting. Interesting if we saw another Paul Maurice moment here. Then
I was just gonna say, it sounds like Paul Maurice thought coaching in Winnipeg was a pain in the ass. So precedent has been set.
Long time.
Yeah, 9 years.
He's been there a long time too. Yeah,
tough
yeah,
going on.
I think. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say tough go with a decade in a city without an airport. But yeah, I probably didn't need to say that.
A lot of bus rides, man.
A lot of bus rides.
Yeah. I know. This team could do anything. It wouldn't surprise me if they didn't make the playoffs. Wouldn't surprise me if they won 2 rounds.
Yeah.
It's so out there, and it's almost funny because a lot of really important things are going to be at least important in terms of the Edmonton Oilers are going to be determined by how they do this year, and I think there's a lot of variability in there. You could run this. How in poker, if you're playing for reasonable sized money, you might want to run it a couple times, and everyone just kind of split it up by probabilities of winning. But I bet you could run the season 4 times and get 4 very different results at the end of it.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's been so many ups and downs and ebbs and flows in this season. Like the first 10 games almost went perfect. The next 10 were 6-10 or 6-4, pardon me, and that's probably about where we should be. The last 6 have been awful. So everything since game 20 has been a tire fire. But
yeah. To Tippett's credit, the special teams are incredible, and they still are. All they got to do is just not piss it all away 5-on-5 in the bottom 6, and that was up to Holland, and so far it's not good.
Yeah, it's nice for that Columbus game to have so many boxes checked there, having 3 guys scoring from the bottom and off the schneid, and get the power play going and not give up the first goal. There was a lot of good there.
And shot volume from the bottom 6, like Perlini taking 7 shots past everything.
Yeah, in 10 minutes of ice time.
Get the puck on goddamn net.
Yeah. Perlini gets 7 shots in 10 minutes ice time every night. He'll be here for a while.
Yeah, that'll be all right.
Are there any bottom 6 forwards out there you'd like to see us target?
I haven't been looking close enough. It'd be great to get a higher end center to play 3C. Everyone's dream is Getzlaf, and it was my dream too, because he's still really freaking good at hockey.
Yeah,
he's 38. He's old, but my God, he still is really good at hockey. But I don't know if they're available. When I did my 3 third line center search 2 years ago, I liked Johan Larsson. He had a shitty year the next year in Arizona. He's better this year. He's playing tough minutes with no help at all, and I think he could handle third line center on the Oilers just to stop the bleeding, but goals for go to die too. But that's not a bad thing. They score a lot on their top 6. They score a lot on their power play. Just don't bleed it away in the bottom 6. Although the bottom 6 results in the last really over a week now haven't been terrible, but you have no idea what you're actually going to get. And I like McLeod. I think McLeod's okay. If McLeod was your 4th line center, that'd be by merit. And you had a really good, vet 3rd line center. That's big. And they also need another left-hand defenseman, which is sad because he's the same 2 spots that Holland was supposed to fill this summer with $16 million, but nope, apparently we still lack it.
Exactly. And goaltending really too, and he didn't fill that either. So I couldn't agree more. Yeah. What do you think about I think Bobby Ryan and Patrick Marleau are probably past their prime, but with a guy like Eric Stahl sitting there, maybe it's an issue of him not wanting to come to Edmonton, but we've only got 43 contracts out of the 50 that we could have. I think 3 of those are dead contracts anyways, when you look at, who was it, Clefbaum and Sekera, and we've got room to sign some people. Is there anybody that's just kind of is sitting out there that you think could improve, or are those guys past their prime?
I don't know. Is Eric Stahl playing this year?
I think he's just sitting there, UFA.
Oh boy, you don't really, he won't be right. Yeah, I'd like a guy who's playing.
That's fair too. Yeah. It takes a guy to get up to speed, right? But that's our problem, is that we've got 2 4th line centers in McLeod and Ryan. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, there's no one you can bank on. Ryan's results are good. Like, Ryan's been really driving the puck out. Like, the biggest problem for the Oilers that I've seen
in the second half of the season so far, so call it the last 10 games if you want, is that they don't exit the zone with the puck and take it to the offensive zone with the puck in hand. There a lot of dump and chase, a lot of stretch passes with the tip at the center, and everyone goes and chase. And you know what? They're actually a pretty good dump and chase team. They get the puck back a lot, like guys like Yamamoto and Puljujarvi and Hyman. Hyman's a great signing. You know, we can shit on Holland correctly for many things. Love Hyman. I don't know how long he'll be healthy because he's not young and he plays a hard game, but I love him as a player. And they're actually not terrible at the dump and chase, but when they were really good last year, I remember watching them. They left the zone with the puck, and they had puck support, and they would just get it to the other zone with numbers, and it happened time and time and time again. We just don't see that, and I think part of that is what we're talking about, the bottom six, and hopefully, I've seen better in the last 2, 3, 4 games. I kind of like Colton Sevier. He's playing good hockey. If they can get their shit together on the bottom six, a better player would help, but I think there's almost something there right now.
You think that inability to get our puck out of our own end is not just lying on the responsibility of the bottom six, but maybe also the, 3, 4, 5, 6 slot on the defense? I felt like we had better puck transporters last year versus what we see this year. It almost in the first 10 games looked like a different team to me. The way we would break out of our end wasn't that traditional, skated up with the hitch pass or what have you. It was, Duncan Keith getting the puck, doing a 180 and firing and almost looking like a slap shot, aiming it at one of the forwards who do that, tip into the end zone that they can go and get, like you said, one of like a Fogel or a Hyman or a Yamamoto that's a fierce forechecker and a dog on a bone to go and get it. I heard recently that Keith led the team in successful passes out of the defensive zone to date before he went down with his injury, and I was shocked to hear that. But is that why? Is it because he's just making that easy, he's not really high and hard off the glass, but he's just aiming at people?
Yeah, it really depends on how you're what's your measure of zone exit. Is it a pass to another Oiler with possession that gets to the zone, or is it a pass that goes out of the zone successfully and doesn't come back in within the next 10 seconds? That really depends on what you're measuring. And I remember when I saw that too, and I asked someone, I said, or is this completed passes out of the zone, or just the puck getting out? And I'm pretty sure it's just the puck getting out, which isn't, that's good too. Like, that's a positive, not having the puck in your defenses when you won't get scored on. But I agree with you. There's a lot less leaving the zone or the D zone with possession, but it seems to be what their goal is. There's so much stretch passing and passing into 60-foot passes instead of 10-foot passes. But if they're all doing it, then it's coached, because if they're NHL players, they're smart guys. They'll do what they're coached to do, and it just seems to be that's what they do. Yeah. And just to go a little bit longer, you look at all the defensemen on the Oilers, and all of them, they all have pluses and minuses. They're all good and bad. No one's exceptionally terrible, maybe Cuckoo. But almost all the Oilers defensemen, all their value is on the offensive side of the puck. When they're on the ice, historically, the team they're playing for gets more goals. And the team they're for gets more shots. And the team they're playing for gets more expected goals. But the goals against go up a bit. And we looked at it at the beginning of the year, we're like, man, there's going to be a lot of goals, because all these guys, all their values on the offensive side of the puck. And what have we seen this year? We've seen the shot rates are way up, for and against, right? Yeah. The goal rates, for and against, are up. Everything's up because there's no guy who takes the puck away in the defensive zone. There's no Adam Larson who just goes and gets the puck and then gets it to a guy who can pass it. And I think that speaks to what you were talking about earlier, where Keith will just take the puck, turn around and rifle it. It's more of a slapdash getting out of the D zone than, okay, we're going to get the puck back and then we're going to break out with structure, and you're just not doing it.
Is there enough of a sample size to tell us anything? Like, what do we have here in Stuart Skinner?
No.
That's fair.
Sorry. Yeah, they're just, it's 9 games. It's nothing. You know, you need 90 or so starts for a goalie. He looks good so far, you know. Good start. Not great, not bad. I like how quiet he is, how he's not flailing. He doesn't give up. He doesn't give up rebounds in the same shots that the other goalies give up rebounds, but he gives up rebounds in shots the other goalies don't give up rebounds. So it's kind of interesting. He's better with the puck than Koskinen. I like him. He's guaranteed an Oiler next year. He is the backup goalie. I don't know what the hell they're going to do with anything else, but he is an Oiler next year. I almost guarantee it.
So
yeah, I find when he's in the net, there's my fear of the low percentage goal against certainly goes down versus when Koskinen's in the net. That's for sure.
Oh my God, Koskinen will drive you crazy, because his high percentage saves are better than average.
Right.
He's just awful on the low ones. It's like, is he nearsighted?
And like awful. Like it's like bottom of the league awful. He's either, you know, bottom 2 in the league in low percentage goals against and low percentage save percentage from the NHL. It's a trend. It's a trend.
I know.
It is who he is.
He's the worst at the easiest. And that's what I think. Is this dude nearsighted? Can he not see the puck coming when it's that far away? Because he muffs a lot of them.
And I feel like what you just described from how we get out of our own zone, you also just described, you know, and how that's changed. You've also just described why we need to score the first goal in every game, right? Because now it starts to change the way we can exit our own zone and how much to force things. You know, it's because of the style we've taken on this year. It's almost become more important for us to score the first goal this year.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I never thought about it that way. And they just, you know, and it's funny. We've all, you know, I'm like, I remember years ago when McDavid and Draisaitl were young. Oh my God, that feels so bad to say. That, you know, you're like, you know, this team should just absolutely trade chances 24/7 because no one's going to beat them if you trade chances, and that's kind of what they built. But the bottom 6 can't handle that, and they just get beat upside the head. Although I'll say this, the expected goals are way better, and they do have a really shitty PDO, and that's supposed to come around. I've seen it go for the rest of someone's career without coming around. I don't know when people are cooked. I can't make that decision. With older players, it's always it's always in your head. Is this player just cooked now? Can they not defend enough so the save percentage is going to drop when they're on the ice just because they don't get to where they need to get to? But the bottom 6s have got a lot of bad luck, and I'm hoping it'll start swinging the other way. They need a rain out. Maybe if the NHL cancels some games, they'll have their rain out, right?
Yeah, I like that.
A little Kevin Costner manufacturing a rain out, like on Bull Durham, I guess, eh?
Yeah, Bull Durham is one of the best shows of all time. It's not even close.
Yeah. We're all on the same page there.
That's the best baseball look at a catcher-pitcher relationship I've ever seen. I'll say that.
It was, love that show. Gentlemen, enjoyed. You got any? I got to peel out here and get back to the family. Anything else before I peel?
We were just going to say the same thing. Absolutely.
We will let you go, Darcy. Thank you a bunch for joining us, and if you're up to it in the future, we'll bring you back. Go do what you got to do, and me and Dash will do what we got to do to close this off. And just one last thing, what do you think is going to happen tonight? Is there a game, no game, and do we win or do we lose?
I think it's like Winnipeg when this whole shit started, is that they'll play, and that's probably the last game the Oilers play for a little bit. It'll come. Have a good night, gents.
Okay. See you, Darcy.
Yeah.
That was an interesting look into the analytics side of hockey. I appreciated that. I just got to adjust your screen now that he's kind of left. But
that was fun. I could have picked his brain for hours.
Yeah. Okay. Got you back. I enjoyed that. What do you think happens tonight?
Well, I think they're going to play. I'd like to see them right the wrong of dropping one to Seattle that they shouldn't have last game. So I think they can pull it off tonight. And I'm going to even give you a score. I think it's going to be 5-2. Oilers pull off the win, and Fogle gets 2 points.
Interesting. I think we're going to be challenged to put up 5 with, missing Hyman, Nuge, and Yessi up front. I think that's going to take a bit of a toll on the offensive side of the game. But I still think we've got enough there to probably get a win. It does sort of feel like that. I was at that Winnipeg game too, and that was the end of it before, and it almost feels like we're on the precipice of getting shut down for a little bit here, and it's disappointing. I think we're all tired of living the way we have been and want to get on with regular life. And I see like the NFL is almost going to go with, like, there's a debate there whether they should just go on if you test positive but you're asymptomatic to just run with it anyway. So it's interesting.
I think the NHL is probably having that conversation as well. There's just two big factors that are different from the NFL. In the NFL, they only play in the United States, right?
Yeah.
So, Bettman will look towards the NBA probably, if anything, as far as, maybe following precedent if he doesn't want to lead with precedent. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I think it was Jerry Jones from the Cowboys that led the charge talking about, whether if people are vaccinated and asymptomatic, then, put them back on the field but I think the other factor to that is we don't know what the long-term effects of the Omicron variant is, right? And so if we just start throwing teams and players back out and go find out down the road that there is a long-term effects that, we didn't foresee, then that was pretty, negligent on our part as well. So, I don't want them to shut down, but if they do, I guess it's being done because doctors have said so, and we'll just have to follow suit. But, I really enjoy watching hockey, and it's going to help get through the holidays, World Juniors, all of that stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting times for sure. I mean, I don't want to spend a lot of time on that because we're all tired of it, but...
yeah, man.
Yeah. So you're thinking a 5-2 Oilers win. I'm going to say... Oh, man. Skinner, I think, is starting goalie tonight again. They're going to run with him. So I'm going to say 3-2 for us.
3-2.
Yeah.
Any point getters?
Connor McDavid. How about that guy? He might get some points.
Look at you really go out on a limb there. Jeez. Jeez, why don't you pick Draisaitl too?
I'm going to say Perlini again. And that German fellow Leon Draisaitl, like you said. Yeah, I think he'll probably get a power play goal tonight.
All right, well, try not to break your ankles jumping off that 1-inch limb you're on there. In the meantime, I hope that one of us is right, my friend.
Well, yeah, if one of us is right, then about some of it anyway, then tomorrow's going to be a little bit happier than today.
All I got to say other than that is, I don't know, cross your fingers that we can at least watch the next 3 California matchups and...
Yeah, I guess
take her from there.
I guess there's a bit of something that's promising when it comes to us. It seems like there's only 1 or 2 people getting it a day versus a massive outbreak all at once. So I don't know if that points to testing being sort of flawed, or it's just slowly going through the group, or what it is, but.
Yeah, without being there, who knows?
We're getting a little closer to our 82 games than other teams, and I think in the long run that could be beneficial, because if there is, a few games that kind of get shut down, we're a little further along towards the finish line. So
yeah,
it's just a goofy thing, and there could be Olympic implications to all of this, and there could be...
I don't think we're going to the Olympics.
Yeah, there could be Olympic anyway, just with the whole thing there in China and all that. And I don't know. I would love to see Connor McDavid and Sidney Crosby and the best of the best all together, but if it doesn't make any sense to go, then don't go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the saddest thing of everything. You just said those two names right there, and if we got to wait another 4 years for this, then where is Sid in his game at that point?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think we're going, to be honest, bud. So it's gonna be sad to not see it, but there's a lot of things going on, and I mean, we're not going to get into politics in China here either. But I'm pretty sure that if they don't go, it's okay as well.
Yeah, I mean, you guys were talking about it on Michael's show, and I still kind of have this, probably irrational fear, but you could get into Tom Clancy novel level scenarios with what some of the things that the Chinese government could do just to try to get their hockey team a win. Connor has COVID, so does Sid, so does the whole team, and you're sent away for 6 weeks or whatever it is, and I just avoid the whole thing and not go at all.
5 weeks in a Chinese-controlled quarantine hotel. No thanks.
Yeah, where you have to watch the Chinese hockey team play, and that's all that's on TV.
Yeah, no thanks. I'd rather be Mike Dursa in front of his fireplace on his couch. The only thing you're missing there is a robe and a pipe, buddy.
Yeah, just call me Hef.
Okay, well, maybe for episode 29, you can bring the pipe and the. Oh no, you're gonna be in Leduc for episode 29.
We're gonna be in Leduc for episode 29 with my old man, the guy that was a career coach. Yeah, he's got about 40 years of coaching experience, so we're going to have a little discussion on coaching. And I kind of feel like Dad's a little hot on our coaching situation as of late.
Good.
And so that could be interesting. Yeah, that 6-game losing streak, he's got to burn his bonnet over that. So yeah.
Looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, me too. So, I guess if you have any final thoughts, give her, and then I'll close this down.
Oh, looking forward to catching up with you next week with you and your old man there. I win a lot of arguments on this podcast, so quite honestly, I find it a little bit weak that you had to bring your dad to the show just to try to stick up for you.
He's probably going to stick up for you, so cut the shit.
Well, I hope that's the case, and he's a smart man if he does. But looking forward to it, and looking forward to seeing you, buddy.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. We'll have to have a couple of cold ones for that one just to get through and try to keep my dad on task, because sometimes he goes off on a tangent and it's hard to get him back. But
oh, good. You'll have two guys that go off on tangents sitting beside you then.
Yeah, but interested to have you both and to kind of meet you in person and shoot the shit, as they say.
You got her, man.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for watching tonight, and I guess 6:30 Ched pregame show is probably going to start right away, so you guys will be able to catch that, or 1260 if that's what you're into, or Oilers Nation people. I don't know if they did something already earlier or not. I kind of wasn't paying too much attention to that at work today, but thanks everybody for watching. You can always catch us on YouTube, Facebook, or on the Twitterverse. You can follow Woodguy on Twitter. His handle is at Woodguy55. Thanks a lot, Mr. McLeod, for joining us and being our first analytical guest, other than Dashney's charts and graphs that he does with his crayons and abacus at home. As we always say, keep your sticks on the ice, keep reaching for the stars, and a 3-2 or 5-2 Oilers win tonight in Seattle is on the menu.
Let's do it.
See you next Sunday, Boxing Day, with the old man in Dash-In studio in my dad's living room or basement or somewhere. Peace out. Go Oilers, go. See you next Sunday.
$100 Larson scores tonight.
Oh yeah, Eberle's getting one. Eberle and Larson, that's your goal scorers from Seattle.
There's your goal scorers. There's the two. Here first.
Thanks for watching, everybody. See you soon.